Welcome back to the Moisture Farm, fellas. Today, I've got some Maul Green ECL playtest footage for you. This is the deck I tested with. I have a lot to say about this deck after the playtest. Where my head was going into it, I'm thinking kind of low to the ground. Have some heavy ramp so that Maul is kind of more valuable at 6. If you get to resource 6 when they're on resource 5, Maul's a little bit more valuable. He gets a little bit bigger on that flip. So we've got some classic ramp pieces in there. And then just early game trying to get some good units to trade, good units to activate Maul's Overwhelm into. The Death Star Trooper, 3-1 for 1 makes a decent turn 1 and even can combo with a 2-drop for an even nicer turn 2 just to kind of go wide. Timely Intervention just to kind of boost kind of underneath ECL, just have a little bit more support with the ambush when you need it. We'll talk about that more in a second. Force Choke is the Sabine killer. Running 3, we'll talk about that later. 3 might be a question mark, but definitely want a couple of those. Like I said, it's the Sabine killer. Viper Probe Droid, really good turn 1 play. 3-2, so, depending on what their turn 1 is, could trade and get a little bit of overwhelm. Also, you get to look at your opponent's hand. Kylo Tai, same stats in space for 2. We love it. Bo-Katan is kind of one of those cards I think could deserve a sideboard just because, it's a little slow. We'll talk about that later on as well. Series Officer is just one of those things that's nice to trade into. Fallen Lightsaber, we've got a significant amount of force units in our top end that Fallen Lightsaber is great, especially playing into the right matchup. Fallen Lightsaber can be big. There's some cards that are definitely missing from this deck that I want in here. I'll talk about that later. Phase 3 Dark Trooper, really good card to bring out with Vader when you need it in the late game. Can really stabilize that phase for you. Super Laser Tech, just standard ramp. We need that. Black Sun Starfighter is just one of those cards that helps out in space. Not super heavy in space, so have that there to kind of stabilize and deflect a little bit if we get a space onslaught. Resupplies, that's standard. B1 Attack Platform, I like this card with Maul. Swings in for 5. You can use Maul's ability to get it to overwhelm. Isn't something too fancy, kind of more on the budget version of this deck, which is what I would consider this to be, besides obviously a couple things we'll talk about in a second. Open Fire, it's just good. Red, closest thing we have, not a ton of removal here. Like we've got Force Choke, we've got OB, we've got Open Fire, just stabilization, gets a little bit of removal, and then also kind of burn both ends of the candle as far as getting the overwhelm to go in. Make a unit smaller so your overwhelm does more. We like that. Heavy is something that is kind of right now in here just for playtesting. When I first put this together, I had no 4 resource plays at all, no 4 resource cards, and I was a little concerned about that. Not super concerned, because that's okay when you're trying to ramp. You kind of skip the 4 resource turn, so not having a resource 4 play when I first put this together, I wasn't super worried about it. But then I thought about what heavy could and couldn't be in this deck. And I thought, let's bring it in. Let's just play test it, see how it goes. Throw 3 copies in there. Have a turn. Have a resource 4 play in the event that our ramp is unsuccessful. Could be a target for our opponents to consider. Overwhelming Barrage. If you're playing green-black, you just run this card straight up, no questions asked. 3 Maul units. This is kind of what we're looking at to be our big ECL target, is having a Maul in our hands for ECL or timely intervention. I really don't mind paying 6 for Maul if we have a timely. In the event that we've already used our Energy Conversion Lab ability, or if we have, or if we want to save the ECL, maybe we have the timely in our hands, so we don't even need to exhaust the epic action. If it's just in our hands, really want to see if we can get this thing cooking with ECL. Vader, once again, green black, you're running this card. Obviously, it's on the higher end. Price wise, just a really good card. 2 Mauls, I probably would have run 3 if I had a third, maybe not, but really, really good card. I think one thing that I failed to do a little bit with this play test build is sprinkle in some more Underworld to leverage Maul's ability to put damage on the Underworld units when he attacks. Definitely some missed support there. And then 2 Count Dooku's on the top, which aren't really costing us 8, because ideally you're trying to exploit a little bit to trigger his ability and also get him out earlier in the game. So that's the deck at a glance. Those of you that have been playing the game for a while are looking at this and seeing some noticeable similarities between this and like a well-constructed Vader deck, and that would be because this is mostly the shell of my Vader deck that I had constructed before the set came out. So disassembled it, took some stuff out, brought some different stuff in to support Maul, or at least what I thought would support Maul better. We're going to get into some gameplay, see how this deck runs, and obviously we'll talk about it, talk about some things that I want in this deck that I don't have, as well as some things just right away that would need to be changed and or sideboarded. Got a couple matchups in earlier this week against my boy John, running a couple different decks, so let's check it out. Okay, first game. We've got sort of a very popular deck, I'm noticing, very popular emerging build from John, the Jango Red Tarkin Town. I've seen this get a lot of traction online, on Reddit, on SwooDB. People are really, really looking at this build, and so we'll see how it does against Maul ECL. This is not a matchup that we're really prepared to handle. Those of you who have been paying attention to the online meta may recognize that this is a pretty heavy space deck. I think just the shell has been heavy space. I play the Viper Probe Droid on the wrong side of the mat here, so we'll see what John's working with here. This is a popular build, and it's not one that we have a lot of answers in our library with, at least main deck. While I'm going through this gameplay, I'll sort of mention some stuff that I wish I had in my deck. I wish I had copies of. Some stuff that I would sideboard. He's going to play this new space unit that lets him ping when it drops, and then that lets him trigger Jango. So Viper Probe just gets tapped down here. And then we're going to go bring in the attack platform, have that big 5-2 out there. With John controlling initiative with Jango, he definitely has a lot to say about what actions I am allowed to take. And he's going to play with initiative very well here. One card I really am missing in this deck that I don't have is Fifth Brother. I think he works really well with Maul. I only have one copy. If I had a playset, it would absolutely be in there. John's going to play out the ISB agent, reveal the Waylay from his hand, which lets him ping the attack platform and thus exhaust with Jango. And then he brings in Lurking Tie. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know how much I love Lurking Tie. And we have very little response to Lurking Tie in this deck. So I'm doing a lot of head scratching over here right now, trying to figure out what my most optimal play is. Yeah, like I said, Fifth Brother is such a good card, I think, for what Maul can do. It also lets you have an early target for Fallen Lightsaber, which is nice. I'm going to exploit the Dooku and kind of clean up here a little bit. So I get a little bit of value on my board, but I'm definitely still worried about that Lurking Tie for sure. As we go into next phase. While we're looking at a Lurking Tie here, another card that absolutely would get sideboarded in if John and I were playing in a competitive type environment and we were sideboarding in cards for the next games. The new space unit that's a pretty crushing blow to me. A Waylay to my Dooku because I have no way to get him back out. And John showed me that Waylay. He revealed it with ISB agent. I probably should not have played into that. I'm gonna resupply, which is gonna put me onto the Maul flip. He's gonna surprise strike Lurking Tie in for 7. Nasty play. And I'm going to bring in the Maul leader, flip him out. John is going to, I believe, just take initiative there and let me swing in. But yeah, that ambush space unit lets you create a token if you have initiative when he comes down. That's a nice response to Lurking Tie and the green shell. Ruthless Raider coming in. That is brutal for me. Taps down my Maul. Does 2 damage to my base. Yeah, we do not like that space board right now. So the Dooku's back in my hand. I'd have to exploit him to bring him back out. Doesn't really do us any good there. You can see I've got the 7-drop ambush overwhelm Maul unit in my hand as well. I've got a Sentinel with me. Decided to just throw down the Sentinel, protect Maul from any sort of attack. He still hasn't flipped Jango yet. Just goes into my base for 4. And also haven't used my ECL yet. I don't have any targets for ECL. And this is what I mean by such a tough matchup for me, because if John's deck goes wide at all, it's going wide in space. And that creates an issue with me creating value with the cards in my deck because of a lot of ambush and overwhelm. I'm not getting the full value of my cards because I have no targets on the ground. Some of you might have noticed just for a brief second what's in John's hand that's going to come in as a bit of a bomb for me. That wasn't even the card I was talking about, but also huge bomb, wipes my board. We saw Cad Bane, how that worked in my Grievous Blue playtest. That card does absolute work. And it's also just a huge threat in the ground. I'm playing ECL, so I don't have that much damage on my base to play with. You might have seen, you can see it on the edge of my hand there, what I'm about to play. Play my own 7-drop Vader, and I'll look through my deck to try and find something to help me out with as well. There's really not a whole lot I can do. I'm in a real rough spot here. I'm mainly looking for that Space Sentinel, the Black Sun Starfighter, just to try to weather that storm a little bit. End up coming out with the Phase 3 Dark Trooper, which will at least keep Cad from targeting my base. But, the odds are not looking great for me. He's going to actually swing Cad into Maul. and no reason for me to, rescue. Those units are going to trade, so no reason to rescue and let John draw cards there. Finally flips Jango, trades into a unit, or I think he went, no, he traded into something. Yeah, I have no response here. Just cut the film. I just have no way to deal with like this space threat. So, and this was something that those of you that have been playing the game for a while, like the Boba Red that was kind of stealing showdowns and making its way into qualifying for PQs, they just go really hard in space and they bring out Lurking Ties and Ruthless Raiders, and that's just hard to. It's just really hard to deal with if you're not specifically preparing for it, which I think, because this is not the only yellow-black deck, yellow-black-red that's going wide in space. This shell has been seeing a lot of spacey decks come out. Hint, Ventress might be something that we talk about in the future. So this was a matchup that was tough for me, and even my big answer cards like Overwhelming Barrage, and we didn't even see the Maul 5-drop Maul unit at all. Just a rough matchup for me, and we did play one more game with Jango, and it went pretty much the same. So we're gonna see how this shapes up against another one of John's decks, running Dooku Blue. We'll check that out. Next game, shout out to my man John for filming both of these, showing off both of his decks. Let me know if you guys want to see my opponent's deck lists as well as mine. Let me know, and I'll be asking them for the SWODB links to those. So if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing, let me know. So Dooku Blue, it's kind of got similar goals to what we're doing with that's a hand he's mulligan, just showing would have been a rough hand for him. It's kind of similar to what we were doing with Grievous Blue in my playtest video, except we've got the green aspect in here now, which definitely changes things a little bit. Green kind of lends itself to be more mid-rangey, where our Grievous deck, yellow had some more kind of, tricks, events, other things that let us get to where we want to go. Let's see. Let's jump ahead here. Playing the Kylo Tie in space. Like I said, it's just a really good turn one play in this shell. Obviously, it's designed. Its maximum value is in the Kylo deck, but I like it just where it is. John's going to droid deployment, and he's going to mark the droids with a little D20 there. No problem. And I retain initiative. Let's see how we do things here. Go Kylo Tie into base for 3. Just getting some damage in. And he is going to exploit. Yeah, that gunship. Printed cost is 5. Gets to play it. Exploit 1, play it for 3. Sacrifice one of those droids. Takes out anything with 2 or fewer less HP. Which is that card is going to do work against us with this build, because the stats on my low cost units are low defense and high damage to try and, like I said, maximize Maul's leader side ability. John's going to droid commando that 4-3 ambush into my platform. So I'm left with an empty board here. And I tried to force choke, but then remembered that is non-vehicle. So that sucks. Getting kind of late in the night at this point. Getting pretty frustrated with how this deck was performing. So Yeah, I've got an empty board here. Looks like I've got a bunch of events in my hand. I just play down the Starfighter. That might have been the only unit in my hand at that point. So maybe a hand that we probably should have mulliganed. Exploiting out Grievous with the droid. And then he'll swing into the Sentinel in space, and he's going to get bigger because that thing has grit. So one of those common cards, I think, in sealed, like draft and sealed, this card is pretty good, especially with Dooku. You actually like, because I think at 5 it's a little bit too high for what that card does. But if you can pay 3 for it, I think it's really good. Time will tell if Dooku Blue is like a meta build and if this card belongs in there. But definitely, like, if you're running draft or sealed, this card puts in work. And, the legendary Grievous unit just has really good stats at 3. ECO, the laser tech end. Just at this point, reaching for value here. He's already completely out with those exploit turns, has completely outvalued my deck. Now I'm going to force choke the Magna Guard. Don't want any distractions trying to get to base to make up that damage, even though that thing is kind of like a, it doesn't always have Sentinel. So I did get to like flip with the laser tech. So I'm on resource 6. I get to flip. He's going to play another Magna Guard, which does have Sentinel now because it's when played and when an enemy unit is defeated. Exploited out that Magna Guard. And I just took initiative here because I know that Sentinel goes away and I'll have my first action to swing freely. If he like exploits that ship again this phase, that thing will get Sentinel again. But no need to like put that damage onto Maul if I don't have to. Kind of a business move there. See how it plays out for me. We'll bring in the 7-drop Maul. No underworld units, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. No underworld units to put that damage off, but we'll take it nonetheless. And then we'll swing in for the Death Star Trooper. I want to keep Maul up in case he plays something into the ground that I can exploit, or that I can overwhelm. Wrong keyword there, buddy. And he'll bring in a Poggle, which is kind of, I do have some damage to make up on the ground, but I don't want to give him any exploit fodder. And I can do that. I can still get through with Overwhelm, still get 2, only puts 1 on Maul. So I think that, and that might have been all John needed, was a little bit of distraction on getting damage onto his base. But it worked. I'm not going to mess around with that and, let him play some crazy. He's already gotten a ton of value out of Dooku's leader ability. I don't really want any more of that coming through. So now we go on to resource 8. I don't even know if I resourced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's okay. So I did resource this phase. I like my board right now, but I'm also very aware of a card that he has access to called Overwhelming Barrage. But the Dooku unit is not great as well. OB to pop the shield and then take out the ship. I don't think there was a better play in my hand, unfortunately. And yeah, the Dooku unit and the Dooku leader now on the field have put me in a tough spot. Both of them are swinging for 5. That is lethal on my base. And they both have pretty big heinies as far as damage goes. So, trying to figure out what to do with my Death Star Trooper here. Do I swing it into one Dooku or swing it into another one? I end up swinging Maul just straight up into base. He takes out a Death Star Trooper. all likelihood, like if I definitely misplayed this a little bit. I probably should have swung Maul into the smaller Dooku. Overwhelmed 2. It probably would have killed Maul. But both of those Dookus create lethal for me. And now I'm just left here. So, he's got lethal for me. I have in my hand, I don't believe I have any of my Sentinels there. Only thing I can do, I think I'm looking for a timely maybe. Let's see what I come up with. Yeah, timely, the Maul right there. It takes 10 damage, so it dies immediately, but I'm able to, and it didn't matter anyways because it couldn't keep 5 off my base. So, yeah, that was just a tough board state for me to deal with. Like right here, go back here. Maul is swinging in for 8 here, so like I could have taken out this one a little earlier, or I could have just put 8 into this Dooku. But either way, one of those was going to be surviving. There's nothing I could have done to take out this Dooku right now. So, I could have swung and killed both of them into that Dooku and left that one up. And, arguably that's probably what I should have done. I think I drew into my Maul ECL. So, yeah, I probably should have dealt with the leader Dooku and then kind of hoped and prayed. Because I could have drawn into like a Vader, which would have taken out this Dooku. I would have had initiative. So definitely should have worried more about that Dooku. Either way, John wins this game as well. And yeah. So a couple tough games for the Maul build. I've already talked about, like, I definitely want to see Fifth Brother in this deck. I think that does work. And there are some cards in the Vader shell that I kind of dismantled. And I think let me put up my Vader deck and I'll talk a little bit about what the Vader deck does and how I probably could have mixed that in. Let's check that out. All right, so obviously the Maul ECL kind of disappointed me. I was kind of frustrated after those 4 games. I felt like this deck was missing something. So this is my Vader deck, which is what I like kind of fizzled into Maul. You can see obviously the laser techs, resupplies, Dark Troopers, Mauls, Vaders, OB, Death Star Troopers, the Timelies. Like this, there's a lot of similarities here. The Force Chokes are there. The Vader deck, the biggest difference here is we run 2 more pieces of ramp with Price on your head, just as a way to, we're boosting ramp as much as possible, this is kind of a common build. Like I've seen a lot of people build Vader pretty similarly, maybe even identically to this. So we ramp really hard, and then we reward ourselves with ramp by having a pretty insane top end with Crate Dragons and Walkers and Palp. This is like my favorite deck to play. It's not my most competitive deck, but I absolutely love playing this deck. And so I think what I did with Maul was I took away that top end because Maul comes out of phase earlier. And, we want to kind of control the board a little bit more with Maul, because like Vader, when he flips, is just such a big unit, especially if you slap the lightsaber on him. Big problem. And so I think like sideboards we already talked about. Fifth Brother isn't even a sideboard. Like I just straight up want that card in this deck. Need to get a couple more copies of that. Reinforcement Walker, I think, definitely is a sideboard. And I think, going back to that Dooku Blue game, after or maybe, sorry, the Jango game. After Vader comes out, if I was able to get another phase, or even in Dooku Blue, if we make it to like phase 7, we're playing our Vaders, right? Resource 7 turn. Vader a lot of the times can help us, like that'll stabilize us to get to resource 8, and then we've got big players in Reinforcement Walker and Emperor Palpatine that can even stabilize even more. This deck should have just been, this card should have been in Maul. I think I played those Dookus just to try to get a little bit more under and be wider. I think this card would have been much better, because, especially if our Maul is still out, or even if he's not, we can still use Maul's leader ability to overwhelm this thing with such big stats. That just needed to be in there, and it wasn't. So, if I do, for whatever reason, if I try to go back to Maul, Reinforcement Walker is absolutely going in there. And I do kind of like the idea of putting in a couple crates, and sort of stretching out the play line of Maul. I think we were just a little bit too heavy in this area for Maul. Definitely bolster up the mid game a little bit. Ruck is another card that I think would have been nice to have in Maul, because I kind of pigeon-toed myself into having one big ECL target with like a very clear second best. So like we wanted Maul to be our big ambush target, a big ECL target. Obviously this has 30, but I kind of go back and forth when I play this deck between whether or not I want to run 30 or 25. So I think Ruck would have been nice to have alongside Maul to give us more options for ECL. But yeah, that Maul build, I kind of pigeon-toed myself into having like one main ECL card. And I didn't even ECL in those games, I didn't even ECL Maul. I got the timely off, but, we ended up ECLing Super Laser Tech, which is like our clear second best move. It's nice because it ramps us, but clearly not as powerful as either a Ruck or a Maul. So I think that would have been a nice bolster to the mid game as well. But yeah, I think if I kind of kept this shell more intact with Maul, it would have done a little bit better. Obviously, there's a lot of Imperial synergy here that we would, disregard. But let me know what you guys think about Maul Green, especially Maul ECL. I think it's pretty popular because I think people really like this shell in like green black. We have like really good cards that we want to find a good leader to bring around. Let me guys know how you guys have been putting together Maul Green. Some things that you would have liked to seen. Some, obviously had a couple misplays in the playtest, but like I said it before, we live and we learn. But yeah, that's Maul. I'm going to go draft tomorrow again at Fire and Ice, so I'll have some more draft footage for you, another draft breakdown of this weekend for you guys. So I'll catch you then. Peace out.